Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's program, one former Texans quarterback gives this fan base hope. Is there still a chance that the Texans can repeat history? Back in 2018, they went 0-3, made the playoffs. Can they do the same thing this year? Also, Bleacher Report throws out a trade idea that could possibly save the Texans season. We'll see what they have in mind. And then people around the NFL weigh in on CJ Gardner-Johnson. What do some of his former teammates, maybe his former teams, have to say about CJGJ? We'll break all that down on today's show. But I want to hear from you folks at home. Maybe a little fun question. If the Texans make the playoffs, I will blank. If the Texans make the playoffs, I will blank. For me, I'll be so back. I'll be so back if the Texans make the playoffs this year. I mean, the amount of Jags and Colts fans that I have in my mentions talking the most crap to me over the past 2 weeks has been astronomical. The amount of Cowboys fans that have been in my mentions that have been talking the most crap has been out of this world. So if somehow the Texans were able to make the playoffs, you bet I would be going scorched earth. I would be going back on X, back on social media, and talking the most mess to all these people who wanted to kick us while we're down. So if the Texans do somehow make the playoffs, I'm going to clip this, and y'all better be ready because we are absolutely BTA messing with all those other fan bases if we somehow make the playoffs, come back, and if we win a playoff game, absolutely the cherry on top if that happens this season. All right, let's get into our first story on today's show, where a former Texans quarterback gives the fan base some hope. Who am I talking about? None other than Mr. Fitzmagic himself. Ryan Fitzpatrick had this to say on the Texans' playoff hopes. I think the 0-3 Texans will still make the playoffs this year. Their offense can't get any worse. There's nowhere to go but up. Their defense is still elite. Nico Collins is heating up. I can't imagine that CJ Stroud is not going to get this thing headed in the right direction. And honestly, when you look at it, the Texans are 3 plays away from being 3-0. As bad and as gloom and doom as we've all talked about over the past week, ever since the Texans lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's still a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel because when you look back, the Texans could easily be 3-0 right now. And I know a lot of you are rolling your eyes, but let's turn back the timetable real quick. Week 1, you were driving to win the game, and Daria Gumbawale fumbled the ball at the 18-yard line. You were the offense was clicking, and you were looking great. And you fumbled the ball and ended up losing that game. That's a game you could have won on the road. Week 2, Monday Night Football up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You had the Bucs. You were winning this game, and you had the Bucs at 4th and 10. And Henry To'oTo'o was in this position to get a sack on 4th and 10. Didn't end up tackling Baker Mayfield. He ran it for a first down. If he gets that sack, the Texans easily could have won that game as well. And then tied 10-10 with 3:50 remaining, Nico Collins spinning into the red zone on his way to possibly get to the 15-yard line, set the Texans up for great field position to go on and possibly win that game. There's a fumble. So I know it's the devil's in the details, and I know it's like, okay, coulda, woulda, shoulda, but at the same time, as mad as we are around this team, as upset as we are with the Texans being at this point, we have to remember, they have played 3 teams, all with winning records, and they could have won each and every single one of those games. So, I do agree with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Out of all the 0-3 teams, the Texans, I think, maybe to repeat history, have the best chance to make the playoffs at the end of this season. Now, the next 5 weeks for this Houston Texans team, maybe a little bit more tumultuous after this Titans game. Because we have at the Baltimore Ravens, who you watched a Texans-Ravens game over the past 2 years. You know why I am kind of sulking a little bit, because the Ravens, to put things lightly, have owned the Texans over the past 2 seasons. I feel like every time we play the Ravens, Lamar Jackson absolutely puts on a masterclass. So in Week 5, that's going to be a major, major matchup. We can't look past Week 4, obviously. Texans have a bye week in Week 6. Then they play at Seattle on Monday Night Football, and then they host the San Francisco 49ers in Week 8. So it's going to be an uphill battle, but I still think the Texans have a slim chance, especially if they can win these 2 games. If they can beat the Titans, and then if they can pull out a win in Baltimore going into the bye week, I will be fully back. I will be a believer in this Texans squad. Now, let's turn to a little bit of a trade rumor. This coming from Bleacher Report. They had an article titled "One Trade That Would Jumpstart Winless Team Seasons." And they said the Texans should trade for Evan Neal. Does this make any sense? Does it make sense for the Texans to try and go trade for the Giants offensive lineman, a former first-round pick out of Alabama? I'll break that down in just a second. Coming up, my thoughts on their Evan Neal trade idea. But today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. I love them, and I know you will too. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Prize Picks, they put their members first. So all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And this is my lineup for this weekend. They're giving you a freebie with Jalen Hurts, 0.5 passing yards. CJ Stroud, I'm going the more on his rush yards, and I'm going the less on Tony Pollard's rush yards as well. And I know everybody is gloom and doom around football in Houston, but hey, they have every single sport. They have baseball. They have basketball. They have hockey, if that's what you're into. I know they have, tennis. They have every single sport over there that can make it that much more exciting. So, as I mentioned, Prize Picks is the best way to win money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long. Go ahead and download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, here's the trade idea that Bleacher Report suggested that the Texans do to save their season. A 7th-round pick for Evan Neal. That's it. It's a very simple deal. You're not giving up a lot. You're giving up a 7th-round pick for a former first-round pick. So I do it. If that's all that it costs to get a former first-round pick, a former Alabama product, okay, I'm cool with that. Now, do I think that saves the Texans season? No, I honestly don't. Because Evan Neal, the one part of his game that has been lacking since he's joined the National Football League has been his pass blocking. His 2024 PFF grades, a 61.2 overall grade for Evan Neal. Pass blocking, you see it there, 49.6. Run blocking, good, 80.8. He had 2 sacks, 6 penalties last year on 459 snaps playing for the New York Giants. So, yes, he could help. He's bounced inside to be a guard for the Giants. He's a big guy, 6'7", 340. So maybe if you're thinking, like the Eagles maybe did with Mekhi Becton, where they got a big dude, brought him in, were able to revitalize his career, maybe they could do that with Evan Neal. I'd be okay with that. 9 games played, 2 sacks allowed, and especially if it costs a 7th-round pick for Evan Neal, yes, I would be okay with that. But let's see. If you were Nick Caserio, would you trade for Evan Neal? Give me a yes. Give me a no down in the comments section. What would you do if you were Nick Caserio and the Giants, ring, 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 called you up and said, Evan Neal for a 7th-round pick? Let me know down in the comments section what you would do. All right, last up on today's show, the NFL weighs in on CJ Gardner-Johnson. I have 3 different points of view to kind of go over. We've talked about CJ Gardner-Johnson here on the program. We've talked about the scandal within NRG between him and some other players, coaching staff. I made a video here on the channel. If you want to know more about that, go ahead, check out that video. It's our Texans insiders revealed around CJ Gardner-Johnson, so you can look at that. Also some more videos around him. But let's look at how the NFL world has reacted to CJ Gardner-Johnson. First, let's look at his former team, the Philadelphia Eagles, who traded him this offseason for Kenyon Green. Funny enough, both guys aren't on those respective teams anymore. So a rare lose-lose trade here in the NFL. But Nick Sirianni quickly shut down his return. He said, we're good with what we have. They like their rookie Andrew Makuba. Even though maybe they could even use some help in the secondary, the Eagles have kind of seemed like they're like, nope, we're good. We don't want them at all. We're all good. Now, one of his former teammates with the Philadelphia Eagles, Darius Slay, was on a podcast with Richard Sherman, and he had a little bit of different sentiment. He was like, it doesn't seem right. This doesn't sit right with me. He was a big advocate for CJ Gardner-Johnson, saying he's a great teammate, one of his favorite teammates that he's had so far in his NFL career. Darius Slay this year, not with the Eagles anymore. He's with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But he came out and kind of defended CJ Gardner-Johnson a little bit after that surprising news on Tuesday. And then from another former team, the New Orleans Saints, a reporter for them came out and said, the Saints were very happy to get him out of the building whenever they were able to, get him out of the building whenever he first started with the New Orleans Saints. Remember, he was there. He was the Malcolm Jenkins replacement for the New Orleans Saints. And then after a couple of seasons, it seemed like he kind of wore out his welcome in New Orleans and then went to the Philadelphia Eagles, where Malcolm Jenkins had been prior. So the reports around the league, kind of mixed bag, right? Around CJ Gardner-Johnson. DeMeco Ryans came out and talked to the media and said it was the best move for this Texans team, and the players shouldn't have been surprised. And then in a kind of retroactive kind of comment from CJ Stroud, he said a little bit of the opposite. He said, I love CJ Gardner-Johnson. He was a great teammate. I don't really know why he was released. Not a good look that your head coach and your starting quarterback are kind of on two different sides of the coin around a major move that's impacted this team only 3 games into the season. Maybe just a little bit of a disconnect. Maybe CJ Stroud is just trying to be, a teammate guy, trying to help out somebody who's no longer in the team, but he still doesn't have any arguments for. Either way, though, I really do think CJ Gardner-Johnson leaving this team, maybe it's the kickstart that they needed. Maybe it's what they needed to get this season back on the right track. We'll see if it works out, though. You can give me a follow on X at Jeremy Chugs. My DMs are always open. I'm always able to answer anything or talk around our Houston Texans. Like I said, I'll be tweeting around them all throughout the season. And if you made it to the end of the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button for daily Texans content all year long.